Welcome to Re-Review, where we watch movies from our past with a perspective from today. Your hosts are Matt, Bobby, and Austin, and we love the films from our youth, so we're taking a look back to see if they still hold up. This is episode 3 of Nic Cage Month, where we've been selecting a Nic Cage movie each to watch, and today's the episode where we're going to have a randomizer choose our final 4th Nic Cage movie. Today we're discussing It Could Happen to You. It was released in 1994, directed by Andrew Bergman, starring Nic Cage, Bridget, Fonda, and Rosie Perez. This movie walks us through the ups and downs of winning the lottery. Now, this is a fair warning. We're spoiling a 28-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen it, we will be revealing key plot points. Matt, what would you do if it happened to you?
Oh, man, you started with that? Oh, well, I probably wouldn't do what was done in this movie. I'm that type that's already planning my savings account and my stock portfolio and all that if I won the lottery. I do think that the movie itself presents an interesting take on what different people would do winning the lottery. As far as like people who will overspend, people who just give it away, people who will, suffer from if they want to keep their current job and, potentially like bumping into somebody and all of a sudden they're going to sue you for $1 million. So I think it shows the different sides of what winning the lottery is. Like nothing horrifically dark, like what you hear about sometimes on these lottery things, but still a nice little spread of what that can be.
Is $4 million enough?
Oh,
okay. Let's say it's 1994. Is $4 million enough then, or is $4 million enough now?
Man, I've never lived in New York, but I don't know if $4 million's enough. Like even back then, like that's like it sounds like so much money, but it's not enough to really live off of. Plus taxes and. Do you take it all in a lump sum or?
Well, I think the question here, I'll say,
yeah,
Bobby.
My picture of winning something like that is you never ever have to work again. You just live luxury on a beach, like sipping a drink for the rest of your life.
Does $4 million get you that?
No.
It's sad. It's so much money, but it's, if I won $4 million now living in California, like I don't know if that could really, that would get me a, pretty decent house, I guess, but then that'd be about it. Property taxes, I'd still have to work to keep paying it. So,
well, let's talk about this premise. Let's talk about the generosity of Nic Cage's character, Charlie, and the idea that you would, not have enough money to tip a server and then decide, well, hey, if I win the lotto, you could take half of it. Now, I think, Matt, you mentioned this is based on a true story. Would you do that? Would you make that decision?
Oh, another tough one. Man, the morality of it. Like, I can see why Nic Cage's character Charlie did it, because I think the one thing I will give this movie credit for is I feel like they did a fairly decent job setting up the characters and why they do what they do. Mm-hmm. A couple times a little bit too much on the nose. With Muriel, I felt like there was a horrendous amount of exposition as to how greedy her character was when she was first introduced. But I do feel like they set up Charlie's character as a very good guy, good cop type character that would do something like that. Would I do something like that? Man, that is so tough. I want to be the good guy and say, yeah, I would honor my word, but $2 million isn't enough to really do much. It's to be fair, it's $2 million more than I had the day before, to be fair.
I'd still take it.
No, I would absolutely take it, but it's would I then give away half of it because of a promise I made on a whim because I didn't want to go ask my buddy for the extra $1 so I could give a tip. I don't know. Me personally, I don't think that I would probably.
But someone really did this. This really is based on a true story.
It is. It's inspired by a true story. I think in the case of what happened, I think it's like 1984. A cop was in a diner, and in the lieu of a tip, they went in on a ticket together, and I think they each gave half numbers. So in that case, I feel like they were both a little bit more involved in what happened here. And I think in that case it was a $6 million payout, if I remember correctly. So it did happen, and they really did split it. But I think that was all that was actually connected to this movie, because they were both happily married to this day, supposedly.
Oh, really?
To their existing spouses. So that aspect of it wasn't true, but there was somebody who, instead of giving a tip, split the ticket, and it turned out to be a lucky winner.
So we have Hollywood embellishment to
or
make
parts
it
of it. I think for the core of it,
more intriguing story.
yeah.
Bobby, are you yelling at your cop buddy for not giving you $2? Are you happily parting with $2 million because you made a promise? Your word is bond.
It is a tough morality kind of thing, right? We talked about the legality of various things also. You know, this had kind of a little bit of a court drama in the middle of it towards the end, and talking about not only the ethical part of it, but the legal part of it. Like, did she actually engage in a pact that they did, or is she just like, okay, sure, yeah, whatever, dude?
Yeah, basically, he had no reason to truly tie himself to that promise.
Right. I mean, and then some of the other legal issues, like I thought that the movie would make more of a deal about Stanley Tucci's character like coming after her than it did, but more of it was on Rosie Perez coming after Nic Cage and all that she was quote unquote entitled to.
Well, if we talk about, I mean, you bring up Stanley Tucci's character, Eddie, they definitely presented him as this kind of, well, we only knew him as the bad ex-boyfriend who was an actor and really should not have been a part of Yvonne's life. And he comes back in because, of course, she's got these lotto winnings. But didn't it seem weird? It felt like he kind of dropped off at one point, and we just get a notice at the end that says, and by the way, he's a taxi driver.
Yeah, and they presented it as a negative for some reason, which Bobby pointed out. I was like, why is taxi driver a bad thing? Yeah, that is kind of weird that they did that. I do agree with Bobby that it's weird that they didn't, especially because they did make him a slimy character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's introduced to somebody who drove her to bankruptcy, right? That's literally her introduction is bankruptcy court that he drove her to because he spent, was it $10,000 on her credit card or something?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so he very much is set up as a slimy character. And it's weird that I think after she basically walks out to go to the plaza, I think that's the last time we see him until the very end. And that's
until
such
yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah, it's a very weird thing that he just dropped off. It makes me wonder if there was more, but they're like, this is hurting the pacing of the movie or something, and they cut it out just because it seems so weird.
You would have thought they would have maybe brought him in as part of the court shenanigans.
You would think so. That would have, having Stanley Tucci in that scene would have been amazing.
It would have been fantastic. How did we feel about Bobby, about Isaac Hayes as Angel?
I thought that voiceover was really, really interesting, and especially when they had him as a present voiceover, like an omnipotent. What am I saying? Omniscient. Is that the word? Omniscient.
Yeah, well, it was weird because it was definitely at the beginning. You're like, oh, his name is Angel. Is he like some kind of a god figure, right?
Right. So I totally thought, okay, this is going to be a It's a Wonderful Life kind of idea where he's like Clarence and he's there to like, you know, I thought it was so unusual that I thought there was going to be like some weird, like, here's like the all-knowing narrator, but for it to be a newspaper photographer who's seeking a story, I thought that was a really interesting idea. And one thing I thought when we were, 3/4 of the way through the movie, I thought, where did he go? Was he going to pop up again? Because he was in the beginning, and then I thought, okay, this is going to be...
He definitely disappeared.
Once they have their scene breaks, he'd pop up again and be like, they thought that this was going to be it for them, but little did they know that fate was going to give them a helping hand or something like that. I thought he was going to guide us along the entire way, but just when I thought that they were going to drop him off and he wasn't going to be anybody, then I thought, hey, this guy knocking at the door at the soup kitchen looks familiar at the end, and then turns out he's a
reporter and not a godlike figure.
Yeah.
Well, because you're right. I feel like normally when movies not only have narration when it's just a disembodied voice, here we actually get to see the narrator. They usually are more present throughout the entirety of the film.
Yeah, it was interesting that he wasn't, but I also think that it's unusual that there's a twist that he was involved in the way that he was.
But doesn't that make it kind of weird that he's a character inside the movie and he breaks the fourth wall at least twice?
He definitely does.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's clever or if it's lazy or like, because honestly, that was like the only real twist in anything in this is, this entire, because I mean, I guess they tried to throw that curveball at you, right? His name's Angel. And,
Right.
it's presented as if he was the narrator telling the story, but then he becomes a character within the story. So, but he clearly wasn't there, I don't know. I feel like that twist, like, even though it's interesting, it also creates problems from a storytelling point of view that he's in all these different scenes and stuff. Like he was there before they won the lottery.
Correct.
And so like, that means he was like, I don't know, maybe if it was supposed to be him telling the story or whatever, but then it's just weird that he's inserted and then, I don't know.
They didn't present it that way.
Yeah, I do agree that I feel like they could have inserted him a little bit more throughout the story where he narrated a little bit further. I know that they introduced him as like almost a scene transition sometimes where like he would follow, like the camera would follow his gaze or whatever.
Yeah, I was expecting more of that.
Maybe it's on the cutting room floor too.
There might be a lot on it. Well, the other thing I'm thinking about here is just in terms of all the characters, and we'll talk about Rosie Perez as Muriel Lang. Did anyone really kind of progress? They introduced everyone, like you said. We get Nic Cage as Charlie Lang, and they prop him up as this highly ethical, very good, upstanding police officer that everyone trusts, and he does all the stuff. He plays with the kids. He's friggin' great. We meet Bridget down on her luck, doesn't have the money. She's in bankruptcy. Oh, woe is me. She's a server at a restaurant and she's got a terrible job. Okay, cool. Meet Rosie. The first thing we open up is her complaining that she needs to get out of Queens because she don't have enough money and that her husband is a deadbeat, talking to the person she's doing her hairdressing for or whatever. And them basically talking down the job of being a police officer, that there's no money there and she should be dating an electrician. And really,
not only that, but that he should be a corrupt cop. And the only problem with that is that he's not going to be home very often.
Yes, because he's out doing bad things.
Right.
But so like Rosie's character, they just maintain that. I know we get to the point where we're obviously going to talk about infidelity here and what it means to be in a relationship, but they set up her characters that we eventually get to the point where she demands a divorce because she is that thing they showed us at the beginning, and they never really gave us an opportunity for her to be something other than that. They get the winnings and she is upset because half of it's supposed to go away, that type of thing. Like, so why should I have cared about their relationship? How's that?
No. See, this is this is what I was talking about when we were watching it. My biggest gripe about Hollywood, and this happens in very specific type of movies. If you watch any Roland Emmerich movie, they have this thing that happens, which is if you want two characters to end up together, you have to make the people they're with currently bad people. So that whenever they either cheat or they have romantic moments, you don't have someone in the audience say they're cheating. Having the person that they're with currently be a bad person, like it just makes that easier. It didn't
work.
Yeah, I know
it didn't work for me.
I know it doesn't work, but the problem with this is like that's clearly what they were trying to do. Rosie Perez is a bad person from beginning to end, and they never really gave her, like, they didn't give her the and to be fair, no one in this movie really got an arc, to be fair. Everyone, what they were at the beginning is pretty much what they were at the end, except for breast augmentation. That's the only difference by the end of this movie that happens to any of the characters. So they didn't give us a moment where we hear Rosie Perez talk about the fact that she lived in poverty, and she, like a Finn moment from Tangled, where you find out that, he lived in the foster care system, and seeing like the dream of having more was what motivated him. We didn't get any of that for Rosie's character. I mean, nothing that would motivate why she was bad, other than the fact that if she wasn't bad, then the two characters wouldn't end up together, because if she was a good person, that would have never happened. In theory.
And if Eddie, Stanley Tucci's character, was a good person,
then again, she wouldn't have had a reason to, hook up at the plaza. Yeah, it's just that thing where they do that. I've noticed this in Hollywood, where the only way that you can have that happen, and just begs the question as to why it can't be a little bit more, I don't want to say realistic, but nuanced than that. Why you have to have the spouse be an asshole for it to progress to that. Why couldn't it have been that the money?
It would be interesting if these were, if the Eddie character, the Muriel character, were people that you were rooting for, and then they still end up in the situation having an emotional affair that does lead to an actual affair, even though it's after court trials and all that kind of shenanigans. It would color the story and probably the way the audience would take it in very differently if you did care about those characters.
I think at the very least you could have had it so that the money warped them. So maybe that they had those traits and you kind of picked up on it and it was subtle. I can't say anything in this movie was particularly subtle, but if you saw that the money and the winnings corrupted it, then it could have been about, how those things changed them and how it drove, a splinter down the relationship. But you could easily argue even before winning the lottery, they had a bad relationship. Obviously with Eddie and Yvonne, their relationship was clearly already broken from the minute that they started. And it was kind of implied that with Rosie and Nic Cage, their characters.
No, he said that she hasn't jumped into his arms when he came home in 5 years.
Yeah, but again, that wasn't they didn't, it had been like that the entire time. The money didn't change anything. Literally, their relationship was already on the rocks anyways. I'm saying if they introduced the fact that the money was the thing that corrupted it, then there could have been some justification behind it and an actual character arc that would occur. Rosie Perez's character was exactly the same from beginning to end. She never really changed. She was exactly the same. She was always a terrible person.
Just like all humans. No, but really.
Oh, God.
Bobby, I mean, you mentioned that you really did not like the idea of them putting Nic Cage's Charlie Lang with Yvonne together because they were technically both still in what should have been committed relationships. Like, what was it that was really grating you about that?
It just felt gross to me. I just didn't feel like, I mean, sure, they had this like happenstance situation where they both missed this like boat where they were supposed to go on. I don't know if that was like some kind of cruise for lottery winners or whatever, but they missed the boat and ended up together. But it turned out into this romantic date where they're like, oh, like, let's have a one-on-one romance date. And then, let's go dancing. And it became a date, which led to another date while he's still married. And technically while she's still married too. And then he as a character in the movie realizes that he shouldn't be doing it. And he needs to find an excuse. Like, oh, you're not going to believe it. I lost my wallet or whatever it was. And he realizes he shouldn't be doing these kinds of things, or he realizes he needs to lie about why he's been gone so long. Cause it's a messed up thing to say, oh, I've just had a date with some other woman, or he wouldn't even say like, oh, it's not a date. I've just spent my one-on-one hours and hours and hours with another woman, and his wife was going to be super pissed. No, but it's like, oh, I forgot my wallet. And so not only is he doing this thing, but he realizes it's a thing that's swarmy that he should be lying about.
So, I mean, it does put a little bit of a bad look on the person that they did set up to us as being this highly ethical. You're absolutely right. He was there to lie to his wife, but she was also trying to get it on with Jack Gross.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. But that was kind of like beside the point, right? I mean, like really what should happen is that he should have had the conversation that he had later in the movie earlier, where he should have talked to her and said, look, like, things aren't working out for us, so that I can pursue this other way instead of doing it afterwards.
So here's I love this. No,
I have thoughts on this too.
I love this. I love this because I feel like you're putting what is the ideal way that people should treat each other in real life.
Yeah.
Ahead of how would that do with the story of the movie if that really happened pretty early on in the film?
I'm sure you were going to say this doesn't happen in movies.
No, it's not that it doesn't happen in movies. It's that I would say that aspect of it, even though I agree that it's a disagreeable thing that all parties were doing. I'll exclude Eddie because I don't know what he was doing. I assume he was probably hooking up with somebody else off camera or something.
Eddie's just been driving taxis the whole time.
Yeah, I know, right? He's actually doing his job.
Yeah.
I do think that aspect of it is probably realistic, I guess, in a way, because both parties were in bad relationships, and so they were taking solace with somebody who they actually found as kindred spirits. Maybe they themselves didn't see it initially as a romantic thing, but you're right, he did try to cover it up. But I think that, and this is going beyond movie talk. This is relationship talk and stuff like that at this point. But, you know, people see things like divorce as failure rather than, you know, it might not work out. Like you said, the conversation that he had, whatever, he probably knew the entire time. He had made the conversation with, oh crap, what was his partner's name? Bo?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bo. He had, even before, like not even too long after winning the lottery. I think this was even before he'd even told Yvonne that she had won the money, I think, that him and Rosie just weren't in sync anymore. And I think this is the thing with all relationships. I feel like in a long-term monogamous relationship, inevitably, you're not going to be the same people that you were when you started, either because you were young and dumb or your careers changed. It didn't really go the direction that you thought. You had kids, something changed and you had to change. And then at some point, I feel like this is why most people really do get divorces. You stop and you realize, oh, we're not the people we were when we started dating. And the people that we are now are not compatible anymore.
I'll throw an and on the end of that. And we are choosing to not choose each other anymore.
Yeah. I think that there is a proper order to it.
But still, you don't.
Oh, see,
yes, you don't. You don't go on to something else before you've decided to end the other thing.
So why is that?
It's not what the hero in the movie does.
Oh, there it is. It's because of the hero.
Yeah, he's the good guy. He's the moral compass of the story. Yet he's out philandering on his wife.
Is he though? Is he? I would question, is he? Because
only emotionally, not physically.
He tried. No. I'm just saying, like, is he really the good guy? Because I would argue he tried to trick Yvonne potentially out of the lottery winnings.
He did.
By saying, which do you choose? Do you choose double the tip or do you choose what we potentially won, without telling her what the winnings were? So he was trying to get out of it guilt-free by saying, well, she picked double the tip, probably because he thought, well, most people probably would, because she assumed that they won nothing. And so I don't know if he's necessarily presented as the bestest guy. He might be the best guy in New York, but he's not the bestest, holier than, all that kind of character. So I think that, I guess, in the movie's credit, these are flawed people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what did she say at the end? Like, he said that he was just a guy who was trying to keep his promise. And that was the thing that, like, swayed her. But
But if she remembers that conversation, he did try to swindle her.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. You were going to just give me $2 instead of $2 million?
I mean, I do want to ask, this is technically a love story, right? Or is this a rom-com? What does this fall under? Romantic.
There's certainly like a romantic element to it, yeah.
I think it's more romantic than comedy for sure.
I
don't think there's enough comedy in there to qualify.
Given the long listing of romantic films that are out there, where are we even putting this? Do you feel like the romance, what it presented, was worth the story that we watched?
I don't know, because Bobby has an issue with how the romance started. So I don't know if it, like, at what point was the romance qualified, Bobby?
Well, I don't like how it started, that's for sure. But I do like how it ended. I like how when she left, I thought that she was going to be upset because of the money, right? It's always about the money. And then at the end, she's like, I'm sorry I ruined your life, and that I liked that uplifting part of it, and he said, look, like, I want to be with you regardless of the money or not. And so that, yeah, I liked that part.
It made you believe in love.
They didn't even need the whole like Miracle on 34th Street, like mail caravan.
Isaac
they didn't
Hayes,
need any of that stuff.
The 1990s GoFundMe. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're forgiving them for the infidelity, right? Matt, did you believe in love? Did you believe in this love story?
I don't know if I'm entirely forgiving
Well-
them, but I did like the ending.
Okay. All right. Let's qualify this. This is Nic Cage month. We've watched 3 Nic Cage movies. Is this the most realistic
boy.
relationship he's
Oh,
been
boy.
in out of these 3 movies? Like, do you feel like this was a more natural relationship than? Well, I'm going to exclude Gone in 60 Seconds because we can all agree that was
the one that
something.
made the most sense. Angelina Jolie
What?
loving Nic Cage. I mean, come on.
What?
So it's this versus National.
So, well, I'm going to
National
pretend.
Treasure.
Yes.
Ooh, that's
Which felt more natural,
this
realistic.
would win for
and-
technically being more natural and realistic, but they were, historical buff nerds. Why wouldn't they fall in love with each other, Nic Cage and Diane Kruger?
Yeah, they both loved history. They had a common thing, and that doesn't change over the years. Like we were talking about, I'll be a different person over time. You're still a history nerd.
But he did also start that relationship with deceit and lies.
He did.
oh,
Is this our common theme with Nic Cage?
wow.
Yes. Yes. 100%. 105% yes.
Oh, that is a way to take this turn. So I will ask the question we do always ask. Matt, are you recommending this film for people to watch in this day and age?
Honestly, it's not a bad movie, but probably not. Just because I feel like I don't think this is prime 90s romantic movie, and I don't think this is prime Nic Cage movie either. So I'm gonna say you don't have to watch this. If you happen to catch it, sure, why not? I think I'd probably would I watch this over You've Got Mail?
Ooh. What? Really? All right. Before he answers that, Bobby, are you recommending this movie?
Well, I was about to say no until he was comparing it to some of these other, like, if you wanted to, chain me to a table and say, okay, like, you have to watch either this movie or some other, like, romantic comedy, I might choose this one.
Maybe because it's not as overly romantic.
Well, I mean, like, I don't think overly romantic is the thing I have the issue with him. I think it's like the realism, I guess. And I don't like the infidelity either. So emotional or physical.
I'm definitely interested.
Go
ahead, Matt.
You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing romantic comedy month.
You're absolutely right, because if we have a episode that deals with AOL mail, let's go. That sounds amazing. I'll tell you, if you're having your own personal Nic Cage month, maybe put this movie into the randomizer and figure out whether or not it's going to be nice to you. But maybe don't watch it like outright, because it's all right. I guess it's all right. But I do say it is time. So Matt's going to run a randomizer. I think we have how many movies? Is it 28 films?
I believe it's 30 actually.
We have 30 films, 30 Nic Cage films at random that we're going to let fate decide for our 4th and final Nic Cage movie. We definitely have some concern over what it could land on. But note, the movies they're at least 10 years old. Nic Cage is the lead in the film, and we're going to see what this randomizer does for us. So Matt, please do the honors, and I think we're all looking forward to hear what is going to be the 4th and final pick for Nic Cage month.
Okay, I need to know before I bring this up, like what is the most feared movie for each of us that potentially could pop up, because the one thing we need to qualify is these are Nic Cage starring movies, so it can't just be Nic Cage was there. It can't be like Nic Cage was like a voice in it. He had to be like the lead. It has to be at least 10 years or older, and it's going back to like the beginning of his career. So there's a lot of Nic Cage movies in there that can be popping up.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Wicker Man or like 8mm.
I mean, for me, I remember just this disturbed nature of it. I really don't want to watch Lord of War again. I really don't.
I'm going City of Angels. I really don't want City of Angels.
I was like, is Drive Angry or Season of the Witch? Do those count? Are those in there?
I think Drive Angry is a little bit too new for it, I think.
Okay.
I think so.
We're going to be in trouble. We are going to be in trouble.
Let's see. Let me pull this guy up so we can all see it. Okay. So.
Okay, here we go. We got a randomizer up. We're going to find out what we are running into. So Matt, please do the honors.
Okay. So first things first, I'm going to shuffle it a couple times before I start the wheel, so it's not any sort of order. All right, here we go, guys. Our fate for next week. is going to be decided. Oh,
What is it? What is it?
Knowing.
Knowing.
I don't even know what that is. That's perfect. All right. This will be a new film for me.
This wasn't the one where he could see into the future. Or was it? Oh man, yeah, I don't think I've seen this movie either. Okay, well.
Wow.
How about you, Bobby? Have you seen Knowing?
I don't believe I have.
Oh wow.
This is going to be tough.
MIT professor John Kosler links a mysterious list of numbers from a time capsule to past and future disasters and sets out to prevent the ultimate catastrophe.
Okay. I mean, this could be prime Nic Cage. Even though it's 2008.
Yeah, yeah.
2009.
This is the tipping point, Nic Cage.
Okay, I'm here for this. All right, so fate has decided our fourth film for our Nic Cage month is going to be Knowing. So we look forward to watching that and doing a re-review for you all. As always, thank you so much for listening.
It's pretty nice knowing what our film is going to be.